Whether you're a miniature wargaming hobbyist or just a sprue collector, chances are you have it. Maybe it's just a couple unpainted miniatures, a few unopened kits, or maybe even this. Yeah. Hello everyone, welcome to NS Miniverse. And ever since I took a nosedive into miniature hobbying, I too am hopelessly addicted to collecting lots of detailed plastic people and army men alike. And frankly, spending large sums of money doing it. However, I'm looking to change that. I'm starting a new series called Over the Top, where I take on hobby burnout, motivation slumps, and yes, the ever-growing pile of shame, one miniature at a time. This is how I'm doing it. I started by making some tables between painting and assembling models, and what kind of model to work on, frankly, just to mix it up. Today, it looks like I'm painting something bigger, or even a vehicle. After crawling through several boxes, I ended up with around 10 or so minis, starting with this walrus I picked up off Etsy. With an ever-growing guard army, you can't have too many Rough Riders at this point, and I've been meaning to come up with a good scheme for these guys. I bought into Blackout models a while ago, and this duster has been waiting its turn to say the least. I got this Sentinel with the Cadia stance box. It would be another good model hit the table soon. With October, I mean Orktober coming around the corner, maybe it's time to paint up this Death Dread. Or maybe he's just too slow. Something like this Deathcopter would paint up real nice. Here's a field gun that also came with the Cadia stance box. I think these are cool miniatures, especially the fact that they have 3 guys each. I figured I'd throw in some curveballs with this matriarch from Aliens Another Glorious Day in the core. I love the Alien franchise, and I love this model. What good would be the matriarch without having the chance to paint up Ripley and the power loader as well? With all these models picked out, I just rolled a d10, figured what it hits, I'll paint, and if I roll a 10, I guess I just don't paint anything. But in this case, it looks like it's going to be Sentinel time. I'm starting off this with a good coat of Castellan green. My guard army is mostly just a bunch of box Arcadian boys with a couple odd-off kitbash squads, so this is going to be the bulk armor color. Using a damp, thick brush, I put a pretty good coat across the entire model while making sure not to leave any serious brush strokes at the same time. And also try not to break your model while you're doing it. After that, I'm going to darken down the green with a light coat of Agrax Earthshade. Okay, I might have gone a little heavy at first, but using a slightly damp brush, I was able to maneuver my puddle of Agrax around to cover most of the model. Then taking a little more to finish the legs, making sure every piece of the green got covered, leaving me with something like this. After a quick drying time, I went back in with the Castellan green and did some vertical highlights along most of the flat panel areas. I wanted to show some industrial streaking on this, as well as hitting any edges and small details like this handle here. I followed this up with Lorne Forest, a slightly lighter green, and here I'm mostly going over the same areas, just around 50 to 60% as much coverage, just to give a final highlight on all the greens. I especially put an emphasis on the edges here. I like using Seraphim Sepia as a finishing layer on a lot of my base coats and just general main color highlights. It does a good job of emphasizing colors as well as bringing warmth and depth to each model. It worked especially well on the flatter areas of the Sentinel, but I made sure to give the whole model a good coating of this. Up next, it's time to tackle these metallic areas, and what better way to do that with Leadbelcher. No non-metallic metals today, I'm not in the mood, but making sure to hit things like the exhaust, pipes, Aquilins, gun barrel, anything like that here. Other screw-like detail bits and bobs I could find. Next, I jumped into everyone's favorite wash, Nuln Oil. I went over a lot of the same areas here just to give some darker tones, depths to the metallics. I also hit this green area behind the exhaust, figuring that they would get pretty dirty and burnt where they are. Now we're starting to get out of the base coats and into the more detailed areas. So starting off with a matte black here, I just hit the main body of the plasma gun, as well as re-base coated the missile on the side. I want it to stick out like something that comes and goes, not that just a permanent part of this model. I then gave these parts a highlight / coat using Storm Vermin fur. This is one of my favorite gray paints to work with. It just has such a smooth application, and its color profile is extremely easy to work with. After that, I jumped back in with some Nuln Oil, just to get some depth on these areas. And then, after that, jumped back in with some Storm Vermin fur while the Nuln Oil was still drying, just to get some blended and touched up areas. After some dry time, I hit these areas with a final highlight of neutral gray from Vallejo. This is just covering the top areas that would be exposed to any sort of top lighting. I figured I couldn't make this missile stick out more than with a classic Looney Tunes red tip and stripe, so that's exactly what I chose to do, with a base coat of Khorne red. I also figured to help break up the green, I would throw a little war strip on the front of the Sentinel, kind of how you see on the side tracks of World War I tanks or on the new Rogel Dord tanks. I followed this up with a highlight of pure red. Starting off with a 50-50 mix between this and Khorne red. And then after that, a final highlight of just pure red, covering about maybe 30% of those areas. The only thing left to paint on this guy is the plasma cannon. I like to start mine off with a good coating of white scar, just to make sure I hit every single area with this. Going in now with some ultramarine blue, I watered this down so heavily to the point of it just being a wash, making sure that it falls and sticks in the recesses of the plasma. Finally, a little Teclis blue to seal the deal. I'm using this while the ultramarine blue is still wet, and I'm going about 70% of the way up the beams here. I feel it wouldn't be a good 40k model without at least a little bit of wear and tear, and I'm going to accomplish this with a dry brushing of Runefang steel. This is brighter than Leadbelcher, so it should help these parts look worn to the original frame while not being confused with just metallic pieces. And with that, this guy is done. Just a little bit of basing, and you'll have something like this. One armored Sentinel ready to serve on the tabletop. I think this thing turned out extremely well, and it was honestly refreshing starting and finishing a product in one sit down without having to think too much into color schemes. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a like, comment, or maybe even subscribe for more content like this. Bye bye now.